You're ready, sir.
Uh, okay. Martin Niemeyer once said, "First they came after the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came after the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came after the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and I did not speak out, and there was nobody left to speak for me. Today, you should listen to me because just as college students during the Vietnam War, they too paid attention to what was going on around them in the world, and began protesting against the war. Because of these college students, we did get an outcome, which was for us to pull out, to get our troops out of Vietnam. And according to history, in an article titled "Vietnam War Protests," even though college students began their protesting on college campuses, they did later on gain worldwide prominence in 1965. Today, I will be informing you about the crisis that is going on in the Ukraine. We'll be doing so by first explaining how the crisis began, secondly, about events that have occurred in the Ukraine because of this crisis, and thirdly, I'll be explaining possible solutions that the U.S. has come up with, since it is a crisis that is still occurring. So first, I'll be explaining how the Ukraine crisis began, and for me to do that, I have to take a step back and explain what NATO is. And NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And what this is that it's an intergovernmental military alliance between other countries. So its duty is to just basically ally other countries so we can all just become one. Also, during the last probably for the last couple of years, Russia has had multiple countries gain their independence from them, and because of this, some of these countries look over to the West for Western type of government, such as democracy and such. Western type of democracy and such. And also in the Ukraine, in the Ukraine, citizens have looked to the West for influence. However, Russian President Putin had offered the Ukrainian President Yanukovych a $15 billion deal to not have any influences with NATO or anything like that. And he did accept that offer, and because of that, we had many of the people there outraged and began protesting. However, as you guys can see on slideshow number 1, many of the countries outside of the Ukraine or near Russia, they claim as though they have Russian ties. So some of them, more than half of them, will want a type of Russian type of government or Western type of government, which would be democracy. And anyways, after the Ukrainian president did take the $15 billion offer, many of the people began outraged, and we got these protests. However, these weren't just little measly protests where people hold up signs and stuff, as you can see in slideshow number 2. It's gotten pretty out of hand. As you can see, even the authorities there are getting hurt, not just with little measly bottles and whatnot, but we also get hurt themselves. There have been 100 people killed in a certain protest that had happened recently, as you guys can see. And now that I have explained what has been occurring in the Ukraine, how the Ukraine crisis began, I can begin explaining certain events that have happened in the Ukraine. And one of them is that Crimea has been invaded by Russia, and that happened on February 22nd. And according to John J. Mersheimer, Russia has told their Western counterparts that they consider NATO expansion a type of threat and unacceptable. For example, country of Georgia and Crimea, and that's why also it has been invaded. Also, Russia has decided to cut off goods from being imported or exported into the Ukraine. However, we don't know if they have decided to cut that off by aerial or naval transportation. So far everything's just by land until they find out what type of government they're going to have to be put into the Ukraine, since it isn't something that's still being talked about. The presidents themselves are trying to find a possible solution. Now that I have explained events that have occurred in the Ukraine, I can begin talking to you guys about a possible solution that the U.S. has tried to come up with, since it is something that is still happening. A possible solution has been, honestly, it's just kind of a debate. U.S. just wants Russia and the Ukraine to kind of settle things out between themselves. However, according to the U.S. Treasury, they have stated that they're going to be giving the Ukraine $1 billion to try and recover from this whole situation. And we have experts, for example, Ben Jemer, who has experience in his field, which is a national energy. He works for the National Energy Source, and he has experience in his field for over 10 years. He states that Russia supplies 1/4 of Europe's gases, and so he believes that a way to fight back, Russian influence is for the U.S. to go big on their exports of natural gases, so that way Ukraine won't be depending so much on Russia, since they do supply 1/4 of Europe's population with gases and whatnot. So that's one of the solutions. Another solution was, like I said, to let them settle everything out. There has been signs that Russia doesn't want any signs of violence, as well as China has also put the word out that they want peace, like they don't want anything to get out of hand. Also, now that I have explained to you guys possible solutions that have come up to try and solve this Ukraine crisis, I have explained to you today how the Ukraine crisis began, secondly how certain events that have occurred in the Ukraine, and thirdly possible solutions to this Ukraine crisis. In doing so, I hope that this speech has informed you guys about something that is happening across the nation, and it gives us a perfect example, especially from what Martin Niemeyer said in the beginning, is that we should be paying attention to what's going on around us, especially us as college students, and as citizens of this country. We should be paying attention to what's going on around us, as it could always come to affect us or our children. And thank you.